Welcome to the Partnership Economy. This podcast explores the power of partnerships through candid conversations with industry leaders. Join our hosts, Dave Yovanno, CEO, and Todd Crawford, co-founder of unpack.com, as they unpack the future of partnerships as a lever for scale and an opportunity to put the consumer first.
Welcome, everyone, to the Partnership Economy podcast. I'm your host, Todd Crawford, co-founder and vice president of strategic initiatives at unpack.com. I'm joined today by Michael McNerney, the publisher at Martech Record. Welcome, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, Todd. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, we're really excited about this series. I think it's going to be really valuable for everyone, and this will be one of our first. So thanks for jumping in early. So I guess for everyone, it'd be really good to kind of understand, what is Martech Record? Why did you start it? And just fill us in a little bit on that. I'm interested to.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with the end a little bit and by saying I appreciate you doing this podcast, because really our mission is, the idea that if you share more information about the industry grows. And so I think this is a good example of a way to kind of evangelize what we're doing and share best practices. But a little background on me and Martech Record. I always say I don't know that much about affiliate. I'm really more of a publishing person. I started my career at McGraw-Hill, and I was responsible for their digital media business. And they had a series of trade publication that covered big capital markets like aviation and energy and construction. And I like to say this was, a particularly bad time to have that job. It was as the digital transformation was really starting to have a fundamental impact on the industry. And none of the tools that we had today were there to help fix the problem. And the problem was we had great content and we had valuable products and their value was, being diminished because we didn't have good tools to deliver them to the audience and monetize them well. And I ended up in the affiliate space and noticed that this was a market that there was tons of potential in. You can apply this underlying technology to almost any type of content or relationship. But at the time, it was really just being applied in a fairly narrow way. And as it grew, I observed that there was very little information for someone who wanted to learn more, for someone who wanted to understand what the different platforms do and what might be the best platform for them, or what service they should employ, or even just what strategies to recruit, onboard, and kind of grow partners. A lot of that information was locked away in the heads of people in the industry. And my observation on industries is they don't grow unless there's a sharing of information. And then that's where a good independent trade publisher comes in. And so, I saw the industry as growing, and I think that was a correct kind of view. Decided that it wouldn't grow unless there was an independent source of information, and started Martech Record. And so our mission has been to provide an independent resource that shares product and service information, best practices, and does that through kind of events and the web. So that's who we are. And, I think we got lucky to kind of join the industry just at the right time, as, all sorts of different types of partners are really using these tools to grow their revenue, and marketers are starting to see that and employ that across a bunch of different channels as well. So we've got a lot of complexity and growth going on, and I'm excited to be part of it.
I really appreciate that you did this as well, because I think it is really vital. I agree with the sharing information. I've always kind of taken that approach. Like, the more information, the more people get it and learn from each other, the bigger the pie grows, right? And that's, to me, really important. I mean, I started, in partnerships back in the late 90s, helping, found one of the largest affiliate networks, global affiliate networks. And, as that industry grew over 20 plus years, it became, more mature and definitely people were more aware of it, especially affiliate marketing, and then came influencers. And now you're kind of branding all of that under a bigger umbrella of partnerships that are, B2B and tech integrations. And I mean, I've been really impressed with the types of partnerships that are coming out of this industry and the momentum. It's, to me, the most exciting time to be in this industry. Kind of, you said that too. I mean, affiliate marketing was kind of, old hat, just, was moving along. but, and influencers kind of came along and that kind of added a little bit to it. But today, I just seems like there's really no limitations, and it's just about how and when businesses embrace it. And really, and like I said, to me, being in the industry over 20 years, I'm most excited about it now. So that's fun.
Well, that's great for me to hear too. It's kind of an endorsement that what we're doing is at least we've been able to predict a little bit of what's going on. I think back to my first job was at a big ad agency in New York, and it was a big branding agency. And I was on the IBM account, and we would do these quarterly ads. And I did not understand why we would do them, but we'd buy 8 pages in the Wall Street Journal and just talk about technology and how technology was going to change the world. And this was 1999. And the IBM people, their point was, look, we just want to make sure everyone kind of understands what's going on because we know we'll get our piece of the pie, right? And so they didn't mind spending, it was like $1.5 million a quarter on Wall Street Journal ads just to kind of evangelize what you could do in the future. And that always stuck with me. It was like, if you can play a part in growing an industry by sharing what you've got, you'll win in the end. And, I think that's true for publishers. I think it's true for manufacturers and software companies. And I think it's true for brands and agencies as well, especially when you're in kind of high growth mode like this is. So we're on the same page.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And like I said, I couldn't be more excited right now. So I'm kind of interested to pick your brain. Like, what's top of your mind right now? You've done a lot with Martech Record. You guys have put on a lot of events, a lot of webinars. You've got a Slack channel that people have been getting into and sharing information and news and other things. But, when you kind of look across the landscape here, like, what's top of your mind right now?
I think there's 2 things. The first thing that I think about probably every day is quality content. And both from my own perspective is how do we keep improving the type of content we've got? I think that we are in an industry that historically hasn't had great content that covers it, whether it be analyzing what's going on in the industry or publishing best practices. So one, just my own perspective is how do we continue to make our content better and more useful? And then 2, looking at the rest of the industry and being encouraged that kind of quality content is starting to bubble to the top and starting to be monetized. Since we last chatted, actually, one of the most exciting things that happened to me, or happened not to me, but that I observed was, the Wirecutter started charging a subscription fee. And to me, that is like, if you could have told me 15 years ago at McGraw-Hill that we'd be able to not only run an affiliate model, but charge someone to read it, I wouldn't have understood, but it would have been really exciting that, hey, this really tough time for quality content that we're in has, a good growth story in the end. So looking around and seeing that reviews that are independent and good are being monetized through affiliate and bubbling to the top. And even now, having subscribers who are willing to pay is super encouraging as I sit around and think, how do I make the next article a really good article? What it does is allow me to go hire a better editor, right? It allows me to think into the future and say, I'm willing to spend more money and time making sure these reviews are perfect because I can see in the future that, there's value there and I can get paid for that. And I think that's massively encouraging. The second thing is just the growth of affiliate into different verticals. And I think that's enormous. There's a lot of stuff, we're doing a webinar on healthcare. We're going to do one on automotive. We're doing one on CPG. So talking about how, packaged goods that, are traditionally sold through, sorry about that, Todd. I thought I turned everything off.
All right. Happens every time. You know what I mean?
I know. But the second thing that I'm excited about is different verticals. We're doing a webinar on CPG, so consumer packaged goods, and how they're starting to be DTC, on healthcare and how, things like dental care and insurance are being sold through an affiliate model. We're doing one on automotive, how we kind of think that might be the next big vertical. And then for me personally, B2B. Part of the reason we started Martech Record is because I've got a strong belief that SaaS companies like Impact will start selling their products via a digital channel. They're going to start kind of eating the dog food, as they call it. I'm never good with the analogies, but at some point, I have a strong belief that a lot of Impact sales will come via a review channel, and we want to be the authority there. We want to be an independent source that does drive traffic to Impact and your competitors, and does it because we've got independent quality content, and we want to live in a world in where the readers trust that, right? And I think we're in that transformation now. I think that the reason I'm so excited that people are paying for the Wirecutter is it shows that consumers are willing to trust reviews that are monetized via affiliate. And there's no reason that shouldn't, as long as the content is good. And so those are the two things I think about kind of literally every day.
Well, and I think, and I kind of read between all the lines of both your topics that you brought up, is that content is king right now. I mean, it is becoming a very valuable asset. The consumer values it. Historically, it's whether you're Impact or you're a retailer, you're trying to acquire a customer through some type of sales and marketing effort, which is really you telling them how great you are and that you should, transact with me. And there's a million studies out there that show nobody likes salespeople and nobody likes advertising. And, it is this independent third party, whether it's a review for chef knives or comparing and contrasting SaaS services, that gives that potential consumer of that more information that seems unbiased. It doesn't feel like, I'm hearing it from Todd at Impact or somebody who manufactures or sells chef knives. It's really coming from somebody who's used the product or understands the product to explain it to a potential buyer. And I think that, again, is really, really valuable. And it's it's always existed, but it seems like it's kind of become formalized and really shifted to the front. And companies across the spectrum are embracing it. It's really, really exciting.
Well, I think the kind of three big shifts had to take place, and those things take time. One of them was technical, right? You had to develop good tracking and payment and reporting software. One of them, was organizational. The publications themselves had 100 years of history of, this, church-state divide where, no one who's an editor could ever talk to anyone who was a salesperson. And that had to be refigured, and then one of them was cultural, right? Consumers had to start seeing different types of content and learning how to trust it. And I think the first one, the technical one, is in many ways, pretty advanced. We're at a point where it's not hard to track that someone read something and credit that and pay someone. The organizational shift, I think we're in the middle of it, right? If you really go talk to CNN or Hearst, they're still figuring it out, right? But they're a heck of a lot farther along than they were 2 years ago. It takes a lot of time to figure out how to incent your sales team properly. And, that's not something you do overnight. And also make sure that you hire the right editors and put them in the right spots and make sure they're writing about the right things. Those are not things that just happen overnight. And then you need to create best practices around that. And that's where we come in. We'd love to publish what those best practices are. And then the cultural one is just, to me, really interesting, right? It's just watching consumers start to be like, you know what, Wirecutter is worth spending some money on, because I don't want to wade through, pages and pages of Google results and have to figure out for myself, what, this website I've never heard of, whether it's credible or not. But I think that we're starting to see that, right? This weekend was with a bunch of grad school friends and just kind of asking and polling them. And they were all like, yeah, I'll pay for Wirecutter. I don't want to have to spend extra time figuring out whether this website I've never heard of is any good. And that was the first time I'd heard that. I'd asked them the same question for 4 straight years of hanging out with these guys. They're all business school guys who, these are guys who work at Amazon and Facebook and TikTok. And, for years, they kind of looked at me puzzled, why would I do that? And this was the year, oh yeah, reviews. I use those all the time. And it was interesting to see their brain kind of shift unknowingly. But so I think we're in the middle of that cultural shift as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think COVID may have helped as well, both from this kind of trapped in your home, getting things delivered. So you're looking for reviews, maybe more of that came about, but also just seemed like adoption of services. Honestly, before COVID, I did not pay for subscription content news, right? I remember, was it the Wall Street Journal? That was one of the first to do it or something, right? And thinking, there's so much other information out there that I can consume that I don't have to pay them. And actually during COVID, I subscribed to New York Times. I subscribed to Washington Post. I subscribed to a local newspaper because there was so much information that I wanted to stay on top of, and I didn't want to, click on links that I see in a feed and then get blocked at a paywall. And I think the same, there's so many services that the adoption increased, food delivery and other things that happened due to COVID that I think really accelerated a lot of companies' business models. So, that's definitely an interesting kind of sidebar to this growth in reviews and just gaining the trust of the consumer, which again, I think is really key from a, business standpoint. Like, I would love credible people talking about my business that helps potential buyers make informed decisions, right?
Yeah. And if you as a publisher if you can illustrate that people are willing to pay for really good content, then you can go do things like raise money, right? And you can go to investors and say, hey, look, there's a business model that exists out there that I can monetize, right? And it's a lot easier to start investing in good editors, right? And, UX design that helps you. And, so as these models start to grow, it just becomes easier for publishers to justify creating good content. I think
it's the Netflix model, right? Netflix, it's like they don't create content because they create it because they have such a large subscriber base. And I think consumers got, especially over COVID, used to subscribing to more entertainment. And then that kind of pivoted to information as well, right? Like, I want that as well, whether I'm reading it or watching it.
Yeah. I think about what you were just saying about subscribing to more things over COVID. And again, I just came from this weekend of all my grad school buddies, and we tend to get into these discussions, and we all looked around like, how much are you spending a year on content? And I think the average was like $1,000 a year, right? On
I can imagine.
the Journal, the Times, I subscribe to Business Insider, right? Which is another mainly affiliate driven site. And so, right. These are just great indicators to me, and that, and none of this is like new, which is what I find also interesting. We talked about this a little before, is like, if you go back 100 years, humans had the same problem. As suddenly, you had this age where it was a lot cheaper to distribute content and create content, 100 years ago. And so there was this proliferation of, periodicals and newspapers and everything, and no one could find anything they wanted. So that's how Business Week and Life magazine came along, because they just kind of aggregated these things and then charged subscription fees. Because people suddenly were like, you know what, I can't find everything I want. I need someone to do it for me. And so I think we're in the exact same period. It's just a different type of technology. Consumers are voting with their wallets and saying, you know what, like, find it for me, right? And build a brand that I trust to do that, right? And the Times and Hearst and Meredith and those guys provide that level of trust. Although we are in an age where trust in media, a whole different issue that we won't get into here. But
right, I see what you're saying. That the trust thing is, to me, key to people subscribing and wanting the access to information in real time. And so, that translates to, like I said, the brand has these companies that are creating content about their products and services that have the trust of the consumer. And it's not that advertising and sales model anymore. Those aren't going away, but they're supplementing it. So it's kind of like you have 3 legs instead of 2 previously, right? Where it's solely sales and marketing, which, digitally, that's really shrunk. You basically have, if you're a retailer, Amazon and Facebook and, Google, and the costs of all these platforms have doubled in the last year. The marketing costs. So it's not as easy as it used to be. And
I think this, what we've been talking about, benefits almost everybody. The exception is probably Google and Facebook and Amazon, because, not to get, too philosophical about it, but, when media companies could only monetize through display advertising, they had to go for clicks, right? They had to get as many clicks as possible. And when you have to get as many clicks as possible, you write headlines to get people to click, and, then you write content to get people to read. And, we kind of all know where that's gone. And if you can drive subscription revenue, and that's, half of your revenue, then you're forced back to quality, right? You got to deliver, quality content to do that. And so I think that there's not only a benefit to our industry, but to society from creating good content and driving subscriptions. So, here we are saving the world, Todd. Who knew?
Yeah, it feels good. So thinking about all this, I mean, what's keeping you up at night? There's a lot of good here, but what's got you kind of a little stressed?
Well, I mean, there's the just day-to-day running a business, which, as you know, is literally everything keeps you a little bit stressed. Just getting things done. But, more broadly is, we've made these bets, right? That, quality content will win, that the B2B space will adopt the affiliate model. And we made bets on timelines that will happen, right? Like it's three-dimensional when you make these bets. It's not just one line, right? And so, I worry that, we will be ahead of the game and, not kind of be able to capture the value when we want. Those are the bigger things that kind of I worry and wonder about. But day to day, it's just, will someone show up for the webinar?
Yeah, I know. I know how that is. Yeah.
Turning on the Zoom meeting and being like, well, I hope everyone shows up because I've got 100 people on the line, that kind of stuff. But, it's funny, like, I don't worry too much about it. Like, I think we're right. Like, I think the bet you and I are both making on this, on the quality content is right. I stress every day whether I can actually produce the quality I want, right? I think that's true of any entrepreneur, right? Is you have this idea and vision of what the best possible product means. Executing it is really hard, right? Like writing a really good article takes a lot of time, and finding the right people to give you quotes takes extraordinary amounts of time. And doing a review of a platform, it's not something you do overnight, right? You talk to a ton of people and you figure out what works. And I worry every day that, the content we create is not good enough. And, that's what keeps me up at night.
Well, that's healthy because that pushes you, right? You go for excellence as opposed to mediocrity when you have that, what you just described. And the one thing, you touched on is, B2B adoption. And I agree that's something we're counting on and we're pushing for. And we're drinking our own champagne. We did launch a partnership program recently, and that's starting off really well. We've got a partnership program with Shopify and other e-commerce platforms. So we really are focusing on, offsetting or complementing sales and marketing with a partnership program. That's really part of our strategy as well. And you can't really be advocating for it if you're not doing it yourself, right? So, we're definitely focused on that. And I think, it's happening at, there's always early adopters. I remember back in the early 2000s, mobile is going to be huge. WAP. I mean, this was bizarre what was going on in the early days. And it was always the year mobile is next year. And then someone, it wasn't last year. It's going to be this year. And it took a while. And then suddenly you don't even talk about it anymore. And it's the same with influencers. Influencers was the year of influencers for seemed like 5 years.
Right.
Now it's not really discussed anymore. So I think we're on that path and it's going to happen. It's just, when do you have enough people doing it to where people kind of go, okay, it's happening.
Right. Well, I hope it does, sincerely, because it's the bet I'm making, and I think it will. So it's an exciting time, as you said. So
I guess one more thing I want to just touch on before we wrap up. But what industry dynamics have your attention?
I think that's a good question. To me, the most interesting kind of thing right now to me is technology that's being developed for publishers. I think that there's been a lot of technology developed for merchants, or at least I should say the better way to put it is the R&D and the development work that's gone into platforms like Impact and your competitors and the adjacent businesses have mainly focused on how do we make life easier for an advertiser because they have the money. The shift that I think's happened, over COVID and because of all the stuff we just talked about is that the publishers have more power now, right? It's no longer a one-to-one thing where you're finding a coupon or a deal site, right? It's the whole funnel is now being represented, and the publishers have a lot of power that are much more than they did. And so, anytime power shifts, money shifts. Anytime money shifts, investors start to figure out where to fund. And I think that you're going to see a lot of investor money pile into companies that are helping publishers figure out how to monetize their content. And so that's my little guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's more complex than I think most people realize on the surface, going and reading one of those reviews. There's a lot of moving pieces here for those publishers to really, squeeze the revenue opportunity out of all this content. I mean, there's more there than there is.
Where the market has identified that there's a lot of value in doing that, right? But we're not at the stage where we've figured out how to properly scale it, right? And that's technology. And so I think you're going to start to see a lot of businesses getting funded that help scale the reviews or the production and distribution of these reviews. And that's, and if anyone out there listening has a product that can help, I could sure use some scale. So give me a call.
Yeah, I know Impact does. I won't get into that right now, but we're definitely focused on that as well. I think that's been another big shift from our business. Like you pointed out, we were focused on selling to the merchant, the retailer, the advertiser. They were licensing our software. They were paying my salary. And, the publisher side were, making money as well, but there wasn't really anything being sold to them. Same with the agency side, left to their own devices. Some of them built some stopgaps and some solutions on top of this, but really being able to bring those kind of solutions to market and really put the R&D into it. That's really where I think things get to scale for everyone, right? Like if everybody built their own affiliate tracking platform, every retailer like Amazon did back in the late 90s, we probably wouldn't even be having a podcast right now. It just would have never been able to mature because it would have been too fragmented, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing will happen on the publisher side as well. You probably know more about it than I do. I'm sure you do.
Yeah. Well, we'll have more to talk about it in future podcasts. So I want to wrap up here. And one kind of quick question I'm just interested to hear from you is, who has been a mentor or influential to you in your career that you'd like to call out?
Wow, great question. There's been a lot of great people. Someone who's been helping me recently is a woman named Laura Viscusi, who's was the publisher of Architectural Record. And I think we all think that the model of publishing has fundamentally changed, right? And the truth is, it hasn't changed at all. The technology's changed, and so you can go back and ask, the people who were successfully running publications 20 years ago. And, the really smart ones like Laura are the ones that can boil it down to the fundamentals and not worry so much about the technology. And so finding those people and, picking their brains about how to scale up this business is incredibly valuable. So Laura is one. Adam Weiss, who is in the technology and the affiliate space, has been incredibly helpful as an endemic guy who understands affiliate better than almost anyone. I say to everyone that I don't really know much about affiliate, and that's true. The way I solve that is finding guys like Adam who can help me understand the industry better. And then I'm sure I know there's a lot of people I haven't mentioned here, but you're one of them.
Well, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to mention everyone. I'm just interested, especially growing, like you said, Martech Record. I think I really, like I said, appreciate what you're doing. You kind of came on the scene and made a presence very quickly. So, that's not easy to do. And so, I do appreciate what you're doing there. And I'm glad that, you've found people that you can rely on to help, because it's not easy, doing anything by yourself, or you get into that group thing too, like, having outside perspective. And I think what's interesting, like I said, it's good that you don't know a lot about affiliate, because you bring a perspective that's maybe a little more skeptical or a little more open-minded in just kind of figuring it all out.
I hope so. And the business would not have been able to grow without, all these other people. And so I hope some of them are listening and know how much they've meant to me as I built this. It literally does not exist unless people don't pick up the phone, especially in those first 6 months when you're just trying to call and say, hey, can I have a conversation about something you've never heard of? So one thing I would say, if anyone's listening out there and someone calls and says, I have a business idea I'd love to run by you, just picking up the phone means more than you could imagine to them. So thank you to everyone who's done that for me. Awesome.
So if anybody's interested in learning more about Martech Record, what's the best way for them to find out more information or to get involved and participate?
Yeah, well, obviously martechrecord.com is the website. On there, you can sign up for our newsletter. If you'd like to be added to our Slack group, you can email me directly and mmcnerney@martechrecord.com or just through the site. There's email links there. The Slack group's where a lot of the kind of conversation happens. But yeah, head to martechrecord.com and just hit the sign up button. You'll be involved.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Mike. That was great having you on and sharing some of your thoughts. Really appreciate you participating today in the Partnership Economy podcast. And everyone, please stay tuned for more interesting conversations on future podcasts. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a blast. It was great to chat.
Yep.